NPR senior editor Yuri Berliner was resigned from the company after 25 years due to criticizing them on their own platform for wokeness and a lack of intellectual diversity. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about NPR senior business editor Yuri Berliner being resigned from the company after 25 years due to an essay that he wrote on the company's site about how NPR has lost the trust of the people. They've become very one-sided. Out of all the editors, out of all the higher-ups, out of all the bigwigs, they're all liberal, 100%. No Republicans, all Democrats, stone cold stomp down liberal. He's like, hey, wait a minute. This is not really healthy. This is kind of toxic. Can we get a little bit more intellectual diversity? We ain't talking about skin color. I don't care if you're black, white, Puerto Rican, candy stripe. Can we get someone else other than another raging liberal? Can we do that? Now, the reason why I say he got resigned rather than got fired is because first he was suspended, then he resigned. So from my point of view, in my humble opinion, he got resigned. It was probably either, look, go ahead and resign and you might get some benefits or whatever, or you're going to get fired and it's going to be a whole different story. Before we get into the news clip, let's talk about a little bit about what he said in his essay, and also let's hear from the new CEO of NPR. She's pretty interesting. Let's check this out right here. Let's see what he wrote. He says, with declining ratings, sorry levels of trust, and an audience that has become less diverse intellectually over time, the trajectory for NPR is not promising. Two paths seem clear. We could keep doing what we were doing, hoping it will all work out, or we could start over with the basic building blocks of journalism. We could face up to where we've gone wrong. News organizations don't go in for that kind of reckoning, but there's a good reason for NPR to be first. We're the ones with the word public in our name, and that's Yuri Berliner, Peabody Award-winning senior editor at NPR, and he has resigned as of right now after being suspended after whistleblowing on the company on our own website. Now, let's check this out. This is Catherine Mayer, the brand new CEO of NPR. Let's hear what her point of view is just on life and what her general philosophy is. And you can guess whether she's going to be super woke or some kind of way conservative. Just guess, and then we'll see if your guess was correct after we get done listening to her. Check it out.
The number one challenge here that we see and is, of course, the First Amendment in the United States is a fairly robust protection of rights. And that is a protection of rights both for platforms, which I actually think is very important, that platforms have those rights to be able to regulate what kind of content they want on their sites. But it also means that it is a little bit tricky to really address some of the real challenges of where does bad information come from.
So in case you couldn't quite hear her, there's a little bit of issues with the audio from this recording back then. But she's saying the number one issue we have is the First Amendment. That's an issue. That's a cause for concern. All right. Because we can't control where information comes from. It could come from regular normies like myself, like you, like any of us, or it could come from them. Now, I think during this interview right here, she was over at Wikipedia as a head of that organization or as a bigwig over there. Now she has just become the new CEO of NPR. Do you think she's going to do the same kind of thing at NPR, or is it going to be different? Is she going to be a champion of free speech or no? Will the First Amendment still be a challenge to her or no? You guys can add 2 + 2 and get 4, but I digress. Let's keep on going to the next thing. Now, this is also her speaking about Wikipedia and how we need more LGBTQ, LMNOP, etc. people on board. Check it out.
For all my love for Wikipedia, I'm not here to sell you on its perfection. I do view it as pretty flawed. It is mostly accurate, yes, but it can also be inaccurate and incomplete at times. More importantly, though, it's as biased as we all are. As a source built on other sources, it reflects the world that we have built, and its emissions reflect the worlds that we could have lived. Its policies of sourcing offer preference to European models of reference to the written word, excluding, for example, oral traditions. It is famously written by men, about 80% of its contributors, which means that there's so much missing from the other half of the human experience, not just the other half. The inclusivity, the entirety of the human experience.
Oh, had to catch yourself, because if you say the other half, you're trying to say that there's only male and female, that there's only just two genders. A common sense thing, but in today's woke world, you can't say stuff like that because that's not where we live. You could be whatever you want. If I want to identify as a unicorn with 18 horns on my hind parts, then so be it. And if you say anything else, then you're a racist. So I know, Miss Catherine Mayer, you don't want to be seen as a racist, do you? Keep on going.
It's not just that women and other non-binary and non-gender conforming individuals are missing from who writes Wikipedia. It also means that they're missing from the history and the experience of how society has been shaped and formed. And of course, it has been written by the victors. All of the peoples and countries and cultures that have historically not dominated our understanding of world history.
So you get kind of what's going on here. Super woke warrior, a wokester. Now let's hear about Yuri Berliner being resigned from NPR.
Breaking news now. The NPR senior editor who revealed to the world the invasive liberal bias at NPR has just resigned. Now remember, we first reported to you Yuri Berliner was suspended for 5 days without pay this week. And that happened after he wrote the article that you see there, the headline of in the Free Press last week.
Now, I think the reason that they said he got suspended for the 5 days is because he put the essay out there without approval. I think that's what happened. If I want to let me know in the comments below.
Chief Washington correspondent Mike Emanuel. Mike, this was quick.
No doubt about it, Harris. After those public comments about pervasive left-wing bias at NPR, now the senior editor, Yuri Berliner, writing on X, quote, "I'm resigning from NPR, a great American institution where I have worked for 25 years. I don't support calls to defund NPR. I respect the integrity of my colleagues and wish for NPR to thrive and do important journalism."
I support the calls to defund NPR 100% because they suck. They've become a rag for the left, same as Associated Press and Reuters. AP and Reuters, and to a certain extent, NPR used to be more neutral, but that's a thing of the past. That's over with.
But I cannot work in a newsroom where I am disparaged by a new CEO whose divisive views confirm the very problems at NPR I cite in my Free Press essay. In the fallout of his scathing public commentary about NPR, Berliner wrote in the Free Press, quote, "It is true NPR has always had a liberal bent, but during most of my tenure here, an open-minded, curious culture prevailed. We were nerdy, but not knee-jerk, activist, or scolding."
That's old school Democrats. That's old school liberals. That's the way they used to be. Just more open-minded and not so rigid. Okay, malleable to a certain extent. But they had certain boundaries. But now, there's no limits. You could do whatever you want to do. Be whatever you want to be. Quite literally, even when it's not possible. Hey, you know what? I was born a male with XY chromosomes, but now I identify as Puff the Magic Dragon. And I'm flying around your village, burning it down with imaginary flames. And if you don't believe what I'm telling you, then you're a racist. That's where we are nowadays. Okay, things like that would have been considered ridiculous by everybody, regardless of whether they were left or right. But now, if you're a leftist, it's not really that big of a deal to say something like that. And if you don't agree, you're automatically categorized as a conservative.
In recent years, however, that has changed. In response, Editor-in-Chief Edith Chapman said she strongly disagreed in a memo to staff obtained by Fox, quote, "We're proud to stand behind the exceptional work that our desks and shows do to cover a wide range of challenging stories. We believe that inclusion among our staff, with our sourcing, and in our overall coverage is critical to telling the nuanced stories of this country and our world." Berliner gave examples criticizing coverage of Russiagate in the 2016 election, embracing the theory of systemic racism, and dismissing the possibility COVID escaped from the Wuhan lab. Key conservatives on Capitol Hill say this is really no surprise. Berliner says the election of Donald Trump in 2016 was greeted at NPR with a mixture of disbelief, anger, and despair. And he maintains coverage shifted toward efforts to damage or topple President Trump's presidency.
Of course, which was a lot of left-wing rags at the time, and they're still doing it right now to this day, which is really a shame, and it shouldn't be about that. You should have more of a neutral stance on politics if you're going to be able to deliver the news. Me, I'm a conservative person, and I'll tell you straight up, I'm a conservative person, but I'm going to give you the honest truth. I'll give you, when I write my articles for my videos, when I make my videos, I'll source it with sources from the left, from the right, from everywhere, so you get the full picture, and you're not just getting the one-sided perspective. But as I close, I want to say this. Shout out to Uri Berliner. I know I'm tearing his name up, and pardon me for that, but shout out to him for being brave enough to say what he said on NPR, exposing the nature that we all saw. All that he did was confirm what we all could see. And it's not just NPR. It's a lot of these alphabet letter old school news organizations. They all do the same kind of thing. And it's cool that he came out and said it, but we didn't need him to see the obvious. He was just confirming what we already knew. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your take on Uri Berliner being resigned from NPR after a 5-day suspension due to his essay exposing the company? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. This was predictable. Obviously, if you want to speak out against a thing that's happening at your company, like an NPR, CNN, CBS, whatever, if you want to speak out, then don't expect to be there too much longer. Okay, they're going to suspend you, and then maybe they just, rather than just firing you, they'll make life difficult for you. They'll pretty much force you out. That's how it goes. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.